Welcome to Wolverse Ministries, the official secondary channel to World Builders Ministries. This channel will be a series of short episodes about the Wolverse, covering all aspects of its lore, while maintaining a consistent and standard narrative. New episodes will be released every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, with occasional trailers and epilogues airing at the same time on Mondays and Fridays, respectively. Before continuing this episode, a couple reminders. Don't forget to check out both my main channel and Micah's Discord server, and carry on the discussion with comments. Remember that only comments promoting blasphemy against the Lord will be taken down. Now, the first question that will come to your mind is, what is the Wolverse? For that, we have to answer what the Wolverse is not. It's not an alternate history, as there is no set point of divergence. Neither is it a character drama based on personal experience or romantic breakups. It's also not a copy of Earth. To judge the Wolverse for its lack of realism is to judge Ulfric Stormcloak for his failure to live up to democratic norms. Finally, it is not a complete world of its own, as the Wolverse was influenced by many people in its creation, and exists almost in an alternate version of our own world. With an answer to that question, we now know the answer to the question of what the Wolverse truly is. The Wolverse is a history in and of itself, taking place within an alternate version of our own world. Not an alternate history or its own world. It is a grand narrative spanning from the creation of the world to the end of time, though zooming in between 1134 and 2034, and further zooming into the timeline between 1960 and 2090. For this, I am rightfully questioned. Why is this world set within an alternate version of our own, rather than its own planet? That is a very good and perceptive question, showcasing an intelligent viewer who thinks critically about my narratives. The answer is simple, one that can be found in 2 paragraphs. Tell me which one is more captivating. This is narrative 1. It was a cold, snowy November morning as Commander Toshik led his troops through the streets of Paris, their boots crunching over the snow-covered cobblestones of the Champs-Élysées. Passing by the Arc de Triomphe, Toshik exchanged words with his fellow officers, the weight of solemn triumph filling the air. Wolkodia had prevailed. 20 years ago, the People's Kingdom of Wolkodia had been crushed under the grip of liberalism, transformed into a satellite republic by the United States. 10 years ago, Wolkodian troops marched triumphantly past the White House, but their position was tenuous. Now, as Toshik's forces reached the shadow of the Notre Dame and the final remnants of liberalism and humanism crumbled, Wolkodia's strength was unassailable. This is narrative 2. It was a cold, snowy November morning as Commander Toshik led his troops through the streets of New Hope City, their boots crunching over the snow-covered cobblestones of Liberty Street. Passing by the infamous Liberty Hall, Toshik exchanged words with his fellow officers, the weight of solemn triumph filling the air. Wolkodia had prevailed. 20 years ago, the People's Kingdom of Wolkodia had been crushed under the grip of democratism, transformed into a satellite republic by the United Federation of Yavia. 10 years ago, Wolkodians marched triumphantly past White Horse Hall, the capital building of Yavia, but their grip was fragile. Now, as Toshik's forces reached the shadow of the Leon Tusik Academy of Science, and the final remnants of peopleism crumbled, Wolkodia's strength was unassailable. The key focal point of this history is the political actions and ideology of Wolkodia, an authoritarian and theocratic monarchy that constantly fights a defensive war due to the nature of its ideology. Its rivals go back as far as the Catholic Church and the maliciousness Kraltu Republic, but the final battle of Volcadia will be against nations that exist in our world, such as the Russian Empire. Because of this, the Wolverse is a highly militaristic and political setting, emphasizing the stories and narratives of nations and organizations rather than those of individuals. In addition, the Wolverse has many fantastical elements, including powerful dragons, secret societies, wizards, both holy and unholy, knightly orders, and hidden artifacts. Before you know what you're getting into, let me explain the Staff of Power as one of the Wolverse's most important artifacts. This staff is intensely spiritual in nature, capable of granting a chosen wielder nearly unlimited power that can only be stopped by the will of God himself. However, the key point is that he has to be chosen and will experience the thrill of witnessing false prophets and fake heroes getting annihilated by his holy wrath. For this reason, the content of my episodes will be diverse but consistent, showing the advancement of the singular narrative alongside various tidbits of lore. One episode I'll introduce you to a prominent country within the Wolverse, such as Volcadia or Athanopiana. Next episode I may talk about a magical and heroic event that may or may not have anything to do with the previous episode. After that, I might just decide that I'm in the mood to tell you about one wing of a secret society along with its heroes, and after that one, I'll go back to talking about a purely political event that has nothing to do with anything spiritual. Another thing involved with this is the concept of a canon Wolverse. Yes, there is one. Whatever I decide is canon at that exact particular moment is canon lore. Not my videos, not my documents, etc. I am the creator of the Wolverse and whatever I say goes. However, that does not mean I want to discourage you from making fan fiction. Plenty of elements within the Wolverse originally started as either fan fiction or someone's separate creation that he decided to let me, let into the Wolverse. So, basically, while my rule over the Wolverse is autocratic, I seek to be a benevolent dictator rather than a tyrannical monster. Because of this, I warmly welcome fanfiction and other elements of the lore. If your fanfiction is good enough, who knows, it may become canon. All this will lead to a variety of complex episodes. That is why I have decided to divide the Wolverse. The first division is between its three lenses. The first lens is that of most people in the Wolverse itself, going into what most people within the world know about. It's a rather sterile political lens devoid of truth and home to tons of subjectivity. For this reason, I call this lens the sterile lens, as it is devoid of spirituality or truth. The second lens is that of various truth seekers and higher-ups within governments. It is aware of various minor secret societies and political factors and willing to entertain the spiritual or follow religions, but not willing to fully go into the depth of spirituality. For this reason, I call this lens the limited spiritual lens, as it is home to a form of limited spirituality. The third and final lens is that of those who are truly knowledgeable of this world, even if they're redacted politically. This is a truth that would be mocked throughout the first and maybe even the second lens, but it is the only absolute lens to view this world through. It gets into esoteric truth and is fully willing to go batshit crazy, but everything that I say within this lens is absolutely true. There is no subjectivity here. For this reason, I call this the objective lens, as it tells the objective truth without bandaging and coddling those who don't want to learn it. Now, the second division that I have relies on 7 arcs, one for each law of Noah. In fact, I am purposely spelling the word arc with a K instead of a C for that exact reason. Arc 1 talks about the primordial and mystical events going on before Wolcadia, delving into truly deep and esoteric lore such as the rise and fall of Atlantis, story of the Egyptian pyramids and the Galactic Republic, and its Night Korov outpost. Arc 2 talks about the mystical formation of Wolcadia. While still mystical, it is limited to the story of a singular civilization and its prophets. This ends with a war between the virtuous Havraks and vile Nashkraltus, forming Wolcadia as we know it today. Arc 3 is notably less mystical, going into the various historical events and narratives that shape Wolcadia as a modern nation. Here, Wolcadia gets its national identity and reason for living, eventually working up to a golden age. Arc 4 is a time in which Wolcadia is at its most humiliated state, covering a fall and rise rather than the typical rise and fall seen throughout most narratives. While Wolcadia is humiliated for a time, it manages to rise up and wreak havoc on its enemies. Arc 5 is the exact opposite of Arc 4, as Wolcadia gets too powerful for its own good. While starting as a righteous force for justice, it quickly falls under the control of internal evildoers and loses a war of ego against its usually villainous enemies. In Arc 6, Wolcadia rebuilds itself from internal evil, eventually becoming a power of its own that is willing to fight a righteous, holy war against the forces of Christendom. While Wolcadia nearly loses the war, it ultimately succeeds and unifies the world. In Arc 7, this unified world under Wolcadia becomes the Holy Solarian Empire, a nation of goodness and justice that ultimately destroys itself by succumbing to sin. For this reason, the Empire is eliminated, succumbing to a horrible flood, eliminating the earth, except for a righteous few. What happens afterwards? That's up for debate. However, what is known is that Moses himself parted the Red Sea using a staff. Mwahahaha! Before we conclude with a prayer, let me send you an epilogue to this introduction, quoting an excerpt from a radio show by Herr Stoharis about Wolcadian history. In 1983, secular scholars in the Cascadian Institute of Archaeological and Sociocultural Studies argued that our history is a myth with no basis in reality. Not only do they say this story is a myth, they claim it is inherently dangerous. They decry its role in establishing Wolcadia as one of promoting supposedly radical ideologies that fight against the glorious liberation found in the Enlightenment, where the empires are long gone and the people are the ones in command. With this condemnation of the Wolcatian narrative, they condemn everything that is Wolcatian. The artist who creates under the tutelage of the Duke, the priest and family man who cares for his church, the explorer who travels the globe in the name of God, king and country, the soldier who bravely defends these timeless values, and the ruthless yet merciful nature of the emperor who rules in the name of them. I don't know about you or the people listening to the show, but at least I still know these truths to be self-evident, that while all men may be created equal, the values of righteousness, truth, and godliness can only be followed by a righteous few that pursue them. For this reason, I know this story to be not just a myth, but a truth that the whole world will one day know. Our history does indeed involve ancient wisdom, cosmological struggles, heroic magic, fire-breathing dragons, and the true reverence of God. These magical struggles will continue to be fought, and those who believe in Him will always be brave enough to fight until their eternal victory in paradise. Amen! Next time, we'll introduce you to the People's Kingdom of Volcaria at the height of its golden age in 1950. Until then, be an artist, not a nerd. And don't forget, the Lord is the divine source of creation. He who is beyond all, the honored, blessed, and great, most powerful, most beautiful, most righteous, and most loving. Eternal wisdom belongs to Him. Amen.